Ciao everyone, this is Nate on the Stone. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're talking about why we're living in the age of superstition. The 13th century was the age of faith, the 17th century was the age of discovery, the 18th century was the age of reason, and the 21st century is, well, how could we describe the 21st century?
It is an age of darkness. Superstition and the sword rule.
Yeah, that'll work. And as proof of this, we have the latest discovery in biology, that 10th wonder of the world, the female penis. Now, if you thought that only men had that particular organ, well, that's just because you're racked with phobia and bias, whether you realize it or not. Transgender actor, actress, acting entity, whatever, Indya Moore made this point clear when she tweeted out a mini manifesto about the female penis at the end of February. According to Moore, if a transgender woman who is 100% absolutely genuine woman, which means that describing her as a transgender woman is somehow transphobic, I think. But anyway, if that transgender woman has a penis, then that automatically means that it is a female penis because that transgender woman identifies as a woman. Your first reaction to that might be, you might argue that sex is a biological fact because of chromosomes. Every cell of a man's body has XY chromosomes and every cell of a woman's body has XX chromosomes. And unless they figure out a way by which chromosomes can be switched or changed in each individual cell, a person's sex can't be changed, which means that a male's organs are going to stay a male's organs. Even if you think that a man can become a woman, if a man's gender doesn't align with his sex and he has hormone treatment and surgery to align his body with his gender, that treatment and surgery is still needed to make the switch. So you might think that Indya Moore is just trying to get herself some publicity, like every good entertainer is supposed to do. But you'd be wrong. Sex used to be thought of as solid and unchanging because it was rooted in biology, chromosomes again. Gender was what was fluid. But that idea is being revamped. In an article published in Nature magazine in February 2018, Claire Ainsworth wrote that scientists are beginning to treat sex like a spectrum, just like gender. And the reason for that is that when you get down to the genetics of it, sex is quote-unquote blurry. According to Ainsworth, quote, scientists have identified many of the genes involved in the main forms of DSD, disorders of sex development, and have uncovered variations in these genes that have subtle effects on a person's anatomical or physiological sex. What's more, new technologies in DNA sequencing and cell biology are revealing that almost everyone is, to varying degrees, a patchwork of genetically distinct cells, some with a sex that might not match that of the rest of their body. Some studies even suggest that the sex of each cell drives its behavior through a complicated network of molecular interactions. To translate, sex isn't solid like we used to think. It's fluid and can shift like an ice flow. To further this point, some scientists are even arguing that the gonads, the tissue that becomes either ovaries or tests when we're developing, need to be constantly reinforced with the right genes in order for a person's sex to stay the same. According again to Ainsworth, quote, in 2009, researchers reported deactivating an ovarian gene called FOX12 in adult female mice. They found that the granulosa cells that support the development of eggs transformed into Sertoli cells, which support sperm development, unquote. Change the genes and presto, you change the sex. This is why Katherine Jenkins over at Newsweek out and out said that the male-female dichotomy is a quote-unquote myth, and that the answer to the question, can a woman have a penis, actually depends on what we mean by the word woman. And the answer to that question depends on what we're looking for. For example, Jenkins says that for certain medical purposes, like looking for cancer, it makes sense to look at genitalia to divide men from women, but that in other cases, like looking at workplace discrimination, quote, it makes sense to focus on how people's bodies are perceived by those around them, unquote, and not just focus on biology. So it looks like science has spoken, right? A woman can have a penis on occasion, right? Well, There are some problems here. Big mistake that the sex is a spectrum idea makes is that it focuses on exceptions and not on the rules. Again, in that Nature magazine article, Ainsworth says that the reason why people don't fit neatly into the male-female dichotomy is because of DSD, disorders of sexual development, which the University of California, San Francisco's Benioff Children's Hospital defines as, quote, a range of conditions that lead to abnormal development of the sex organs and atypical genitalia that is not clearly male or female, unquote. But a disorder isn't something that's supposed to happen. It's an error, a mistake, an exception. And exceptions don't disprove a rule, they actually prove the rule. For example, if we take some sweet corn and plant it in the field and leave to let nature do its thing, we expect the corn to sprout and grow because experience, biology, and agriculture has all taught us that that's what corn is supposed to do when it's planted. That's why no one is ever surprised to see corn growing in the middle of summer. Now, if none of the corn actually grew, we wouldn't say, well, that's just the way of it. Sometimes it grows, sometimes it doesn't. You just never know what you're going to get. No, we would say, something went wrong. And we could come to that conclusion because the rule has been broken. Corn not growing doesn't prove that sometimes corn grows, sometimes it doesn't, and you never know what you're going to get. No, it proves that corn is supposed to grow because a whole field full of corn not growing is what catches your attention. If there were no rules, if things didn't behave in a certain way, then we couldn't draw any conclusions, we couldn't make any predictions, and we wouldn't be able to point to something and say, that's unique, that's an exception, that's extraordinary. An albino crocodile wouldn't be a tourist trap at a zoo if crocodiles weren't not supposed to be white. A flying elephant wouldn't be considered the ninth wonder of the universe if elephants were just able to fly. And anomalies to chromosomes and genitalia wouldn't be the news that they are if the rule wasn't, if a person has XY chromosomes, they're male and has male genitalia, and if a person has XX chromosomes, they're female and has female genitalia. The only reason why these things are considered unique and newsworthy is because that male-female binary exists. In fact, Indya Moore could only set herself against the male-female binary by talking about the female penis because the male-female binary exists. Because if men could have women parts and women could have men parts, then what was the point of her taking to Twitter at the end of February and educating people about the female penis? There wasn't one. Because if that was the norm, if the mixing and matching was actually the norm, then that's just how it would be. This is why belief in the female penis is superstitious. Superstition is the belief in magic and omens, the belief that certain words and actions will bring about a certain result when they really shouldn't. The belief, for example, that throwing salt over your shoulder will ward off bad luck, or that saying a certain string of words inside of a magic circle will whip up a storm. According to author Richard Cavendish, magical thinking, quote, leaps to conclusions which are often scientifically unwarranted, but which often seem poetically right, unquote. But magical thinking also makes the person, the magical thinker, the center and creator of reality. Because if your will to believe, if your will to power, and your words can change and shape and bend reality, what are you except a demigod? But the age of superstition brings about its own problems. The first one being is that it makes us the creators of reality. When that happens, what exists outside of us doesn't matter anymore. Instead, it's our own desires, our own thoughts, and our own wishes and our own feelings that create reality. And then our words push that reality outside onto other people. If you have a male organ, but you feel like a woman, you think you're a woman, and then you say that you're a woman, that male organ becomes a female organ. Just like that. Scientifically unwarranted, but poetically right, remember? This contradicts reality, which is bad enough, but it does something more than that. It sets up a power struggle.
It is an age of darkness. Superstition and the sword rule.
If your reality contradicts my reality, and my reality creating words are at war with your reality creating words, then whose reality wins at the end of the day? Or if that can't be decided, which outside force decides which reality wins? The government? The politics of intersectional identity? And this leads to something else. If our will and our words create reality, how are we actually going to make new discoveries? Discovery in any field, or just in life in general, requires us to objectively see the world for what it is, gather facts, and then put them together to form conclusions, which is actually the scientific method in a nutshell. But if we create our own reality, how are we going to be open to facts that could potentially lead to new discoveries, especially if those facts contradict how we feel and how we think? How are we even going to be able to know that the facts that we are basing our reality on, if they come from inside of us, are wrong? The answer is, we won't be able to. The scientific method and discovery in general requires us to believe, accept, and understand that reality is solid and that it's outside of us, and that it can't be radically changed just by our feelings and by our words. Instead, we have to embrace the world and bring it inside of ourselves through our senses. That's how new discoveries are made. But if we believe the opposite of that, if reality instead comes from inside of us and is then pushed to the outside by our words, we can't make new discoveries because we're not open to the world. Instead, we're self-contained like this circle by what we feel and by what we think. So yeah, if you believe that reality comes from inside of yourself, I guess you can say that you're free to be whatever you want or whatever you feel like. But we're not actually free to make new discoveries. And if we're not free to make new discoveries, we're not free to make any progress. But what say you? Are we living in the age of superstition, or is science just making radical new discoveries that is forcing us to rethink how the world is and how it works? As always, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Well, that about wraps up everything for right now, gang. As always, if you liked the video, whether you agreed with me or not, then don't forget to show your support by giving the video a like and by sharing it with your friends on social media. Whatever you do helps me and the channel, guys, and I really appreciate it. And if you like videos about the culture, politics, and religion, but from a different POV, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to ring the bell for notifications so that you will always know when I post new videos like this every Tuesday. Videos that you're not going to want to miss. As always, thank you for watching, for giving me a little bit of your day. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. And I will see you all again here next week, gang, on top of the stone. Ciao.